Hello guys, and welcome to a new warning order video today by me, Vulcan. Today I wanted to talk about the latest blog post that Eugen has spoiled us with this Christmas. If you'd like to check it out for yourself, I'll make sure to leave a link in the description. At the start of the post, they tell us that this blog is certainly not a one-off, and just like Steel Division 2, we'll be getting new details about WARNO weekly, which is awesome. There is also a note asking the community to keep things calm, cool, and collected. It really makes me appreciate actually how great the Steel Division community has been, in particular during Steel Division WD44, where the community was just so top-notch. Unfortunately, there is no denying that the Wargame community has always been a bit more difficult to work with, but I'm hoping that this new game really gets people excited and promotes a more positive energy this time around. There is a bit of a segment here about the history of Eugen and what they've tried to do so far, but of course we're interested in WARNO. So in the Where Do We Want to Go section, it promotes that clarity and reducing micromanagement are two goals for WARNO, and they don't want to detract from complexity by doing so. What they say is in fact that these elements are not mutually exclusive. I personally feel like what they've been doing with Steel Division in adding smart orders and rules of engagement has helped so much with bringing newer players into the game. I don't really feel smart orders belong in multiplayer to a certain degree. However, if there is significant improvement in how they are implemented for WARNO, then I definitely welcome them again. Moving on, they talk about the first aspect of the new UI. The tactical icons, which in my opinion look really clean with the new square design. Their intentions with them is to be able to see the function, strength, activity and status of a unit at the same time. Units will now show their size, type and role all in one icon. I've mentioned it in the last video, but as you can see in the screenshot, units have a combat value associated with them, represented by the coloured triangle in the corner. Orange being low value, then green, then blue as the highest in this case. These are there to better determine power at a glance. However, one thing that I feel is missing is armor and AP values that were very useful to be seen on the unit icon in Steel Division 2. On a separate note, I've never really liked using icon aggregation as it makes it hard to see exactly where a unit is when you're zoomed out, but apparently it is improved, so I'm interested to see if there's still the same issue. In the next section, they talk about the Smart Target Cursor. It looks like the cursor is going to be a lot like Steel Division 2, showing range, penetration chance, and hit chance. Furthermore, it also shows the enemy armor value, based on which side is facing, and the friendly gun type and AP value. I still feel like the icon should show AP and armor by default rather than seeing it when mousing over enemy targets, since during a game you aren't going to have much time to click a unit and mouse over all others just to check these stats, especially when controlling larger groups and in high intensity scenarios. Having to also bring up the info tab for each unit during the game is going to make it much more tedious as well. Different to other games, there is a damage number, but in the case of the first screenshot, it seems like kinetic AP is actually going to have the same formula as Wargame Red Dragon. If I remember correctly, that is AP minus armor divided by 2 plus 1. Which, if you do the math, in this case, ends up as the shown 7.5. It's nice that the game obviously does that math for you. You don't actually have to learn the formula and work it out in game, or between each unit in the armory. I think this is a lot easier to understand than the more realistic Steel Division armor system, which uses millimeters of armor and penetration, because in Steel Division, how range affected penetration based on gun caliber was always really ambiguous and ended up being something that you just learned through experience with each individual unit, which definitely took a lot of time. The second screenshot shows more of the same cursor, just with different values. In this case, the tank being out of range and unable to damage. Two things I have noticed that seem inconsistent though is the range values, which are strangely high, and then the aiming tag underneath. It's hard to tell what this means at the moment, whether it is seconds of aim time or how good a unit is at aiming, with a higher value being actually better. The reason I say this is because you'd expect the M1 Abrams to have a faster aim time than what I think is a T55. Now it's time to talk about the new Cohesion system, which is basically a replacement for suppression. I'll read what it says directly from the blog post, as it's pretty concise. So Cohesion has 4 states: high, normal, poor, and low. The idea is this: a unit that arrives on the battlefield is fresh and has a high level of cohesion. This gives them a 25% speed bonus. Then, inevitable degradation due to active combat, a unit will suffer various modifiers such as reduced movement speed, more time to reload, and more time to aim. Cohesion levels will drop to a point where the chance to rout will increase more and more. So there will be a routing system, probably more similar to Wargame than Steel Division by the sounds of it. But personally, I think this system could have its merits, but I'm worried about the effect on extended infantry engagements more than vehicle engagements. In Wargame, engagements between vehicles were never that long, with units being moved in and out of combat or cover, or just dying very fast due to high lethality. I would assume that Cohesion should recover out of combat over time, so vehicles will be much better off since they can obviously move out of the way much quicker. But infantry often stays in combat longer, a lot longer, and suffers more damage and effect of artillery and bombing strikes. So I feel like infantry is going to kind of have the short straw in this system, and I hope that's kind of accounted for. Saying that though, having mortars or artillery to harass vehicles to stop them from recovering may turn out to be like some sort of meta. It will definitely be interesting though to see how it plays out. Moving on to the third and final section of the blog, we have a good look at the tactical controls we will have access to in WARNO. The first paragraph further confirms smart orders including seize and hold position for most units, and counter battery and defensive fire for artillery. The idea of smart orders is to reduce micromanagement for the player, and that continues to be the ethos here. I am worried though how powerful modern artillery will be with these orders, especially considering in Wargame artillery fired faster and had less dispersion than in Steel Division 2. There was balance updates to smart orders in Steel Division 2 to make sure it wasn't too overpowered though, so I'd expect the same treatment during early access for WARNO if that is the case. Next up, rules of engagement. The ability to control how units pathfind and behave individually or overall was a fantastic addition to Steel Division 2. These appear to have been expanded upon, with the addition of HGM targeting options and AI aggression options, for example on this M3A1 Bradley. The targeting one shows the ability to avoid wasting HGMs on transports, which is particularly interesting. But what it says though, that it appears that there may be other new rules of engagement too, on other types of units that we can't see here. There is mention, however, of a rule of engagement that sends unarmoured transports back to the edge of the map for a refund. Now that's quite something. It could also be a pretty awesome way to combat the suicide transport tradition that we saw in Wargame. In Steel Division 2 you couldn't do that because unarmoured transports would just disappear. But this seems like a much better way of doing things. And this will break your immersion a lot less than just seeing a vehicle be Thanos snapped. So I'm really excited to actually see this in action. Even though I already mentioned smart orders, there is one line here that says we will go more into depth into WARNO's new smart orders in a future blog post. And this implies that there are completely new smart orders, so that's quite exciting, and I'll keep you updated when I find out more. The last thing mentioned in the blog is the new line of sight tool. It's the same as the Steel Division line of sight tool, except now with the ability to show what units can see based on their optics versus units of a particular stealth value. The screenshot we are shown has 2 circles, with potentially more that can be added based on the options on the bottom right hand side. The inner green circle in this case is showing how far the Recon Bradley can see units in its line of sight in cover which have normal stealth. The larger green outer circle being for units in open ground. This is a fantastic addition to an already very useful tool. I am worried, however, they've seemed to have removed the range guidelines that were there by default in Steel Division 2 and were very useful for finding the best places to put your units to maximize range capability. So hopefully they add that back in. So that about wraps it up for all of the new information in this blog. However, I did want to quickly look at the orders shown for the Bradley on the right hand side. I expect most of you who watch my channel will know these from Steel Division 2, but for those jumping to WARNO from Wargame, I'll go through them. Hunt is attack move, with quick hunt basically being fast move plus attack move. So units prioritize roads, but also stop to fire. You have the usual move fast for roads and reverse orders, then return fire. This stops a unit firing unless fired upon. It's very useful for ambushes in particular, where you can manually hold fire of a unit until you get a side shot or an opportune moment, without actually having to turn off the weapons entirely, since it will still defend itself if fired upon first. Fire position is there, as it was before, and of course the stop command. Then the newer unload at position command, which means you don't have to queue your unload commands anymore. In Wargame, you had to use fast move and then shift click unload in order to make them do that. Now it's just all in one command, and has been since, I believe, Steel Division Normandy 44 now. Other small things to note in these screenshots is it shows that there are no longer ammo types for AP and HE, so that's been simplified again. Being able to control ammo loaded did give a certain element of gameplay to Steel Division, especially as it forced units to engage specific types of enemy units. However, this may be something that's actually replaced by the new rules of engagement in this game instead. Finally, you can see the UI placement for showing health and cohesion on the left, with fuel also there, which we saw in the armory screenshot on the main Steam page. And that's it. There is so much information to take in here. It's a fantastic blog post which really gives us an insight to some of the great quality of life tools we're going to have in WARNO. So make sure to go have a look at the post yourself. Once again, you'll be able to find a link in the description. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to have a great Christmas, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.